This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. It's the 16th of August 2010, and today I'm talking to Aidan Monaghan, a researcher whose tireless efforts pursuing government documents via Freedom of Information Act requests have led to the unearthing of some extremely revealing information regarding the falsity of the official government-approved 9/11 conspiracy theory. He blogs regularly at 911blogger.com. Aidan Monaghan, it is a pleasure to have you here today on the Corbett Report.
Thanks for having me.
Well, not to be too cliched, but perhaps it would be most fruitful to start by asking you the inevitable questions about how and when you started questioning the official 9/11 story and what motivated you to really delve into this 9/11 research.
I believe it began about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer, probably 6. There was some paleoconservative writer named Debbie Kidd, I believe her name was, and she brought up the topic of one of the videos. At that time, I believe it was called In Plain Sight. And I looked at that, and that was one of the first things that got me to questioning everything that happened. And then from there, my research just moved on to other areas, and it's sort of snowballed since.
It certainly has. It's snowballed into just an incredible amount of work that you've done, and it is available, as I say, on 911blogger.com for people who want to follow sort of what you've done over the years. But let's focus specifically on the tack that you've taken in your research, because you have uncovered an incredible treasure trove of information through the use of Freedom of Information Act requests. So why did you decide to go the FOIA route, and what have been the fruits of those requests so far?
I began this about 3 years ago, and at the time I did it, it seemed like an unexplored area of research. And since that time, I've sent off just countless. I've totally lost track of the number I've sent to multiple agencies, New York State and federal, mostly. And it seems that the reoccurring theme is that in most cases there is no information available. That in some cases there has been some information provided that is proven somewhat interesting, in my opinion, in some cases.
Right. Well, let's run through some of that, because, as you say, there's just so many things that we don't know about 9/11 that we really should know by now, but we're being refused access to. For example, just one example is the logs, the White House Secret Service logs from 9/11 itself. But what are some of the other examples of information that we don't have that we really should?
Some of that information seems to be mostly held by the FBI, and they, of course, have all of that information tucked away in a file that has been declared exempt from disclosure by the Department of Justice. And I've been busy lately trying to pry those records from them by a civil rights lawsuit, and it's proceeding somewhat slowly. I was hoping it would move a little quicker. And eventually, I frankly expect them to just declare the records as continuing to be exempt from disclosure. But I just want to, if not getting the records, I want to put them on the record as saying 10 years later, no, you still cannot see this information, and basically, hopefully, put them on the defensive, where somebody else may step up in the future and try to continue this.
Well, absolutely. I think that's definitely the goal we need to be aiming at, because just what you've managed to uncover so far has been extremely revealing. And just regarding that FBI 9/11 records request, that lawsuit that you have ongoing, it's talking about things like records describing aircraft wreckage from Flight 77 and 93, and records describing the make and model of flight management computers or flight management systems, and multimode receivers, talking about the inventory control serial numbers for flight data recorders, all sorts of information, just basic details of the investigation that should be readily available, certainly now, 9 years later, when there's really no possible justification for hiding behind any type of smokescreen of national security. And it is, I think, telling in itself that you're receiving such resistance to these requests. And as I understand it, the FBI has actually attempted to claim that all 9/11 related records are exempt from FOIA?
That's correct. The whole entire, anything related to the topic is tucked away in a file that says hands off, basically.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, just incidental information that would verify their story. I put it in my lawsuit. I've cited all of the programs that have covered the controversies, BBC, National Geographic, and others who've broadcast documentaries surrounding the public questions and around certain discrepancies. And so one would think that the Department of Justice would be compelled to, for public relations reasons, just to basically put this information out there, restore public confidence, and put to bed all of these questions. But they continue to fight me on this.
Well, that's certainly right, and the FBI does contain such a vast amount of information on this, obviously, but it's not just the FBI. There's the FAA and the NTSB and the Secret Service. What other types of agencies have you requested information from?
I've also gone after some of the FAA records. It seems, according to an answer I got from them a couple of years ago, that those records may be under the control of the FBI. Some information that I was able to get, for example, was from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics for the travel times for the aircraft in question preceding 9/11, and that did generate an interesting discrepancy. For example, the agency FOIA reply indicated that much information was not available for 3 of the 4 aircraft, actually all 4, for the entire year of 2001, according to their FOIA reply. However, if one went on to their online searchable database for these aircraft and departure times, arrival times in the days, weeks, and months before 9/11, one can find that there are actually times available. So basically, we have 2 sets of information from the same agency regarding the same aircraft, which should rightly cause one to wonder if this information is authentic.
Exactly. It would have to, obviously, when there's a discrepancy like that coming from the same source. And at the time, I think that particular story generated a lot of interest in thinking that maybe the planes had not flown since the end of 2000. But I think just the discrepancy itself is something that really does need to be explained. Has there ever been some sort of official explanation for that or any update to the records?
No, I personally contacted their FOIA officer within a few days of getting the answer back, and he explained to me where he had gotten the information from for the FOIA records, and it just happens to turn out to be the same location where the online database is located, basically the same source. So we're basically obtaining 2 sets of information from the very same source.
Interesting. Well, one of the interesting documents that have come out recently was regarding NIST and an internal document that was a rejection of request for information regarding the model that they used for their so-called computer model, which showed the collapse of WTC-7 in quotation marks. I don't know, was that you that actually put in that request, or was that another researcher?
No, those requests were the results of others. I recently followed up myself just to see what answer I could obtain, and I obtained the same answer, and that basically these files are exempt from public disclosure because they, according to the NIST director, may jeopardize public safety. And basically the whole matter has been taken away from the Freedom of Information Act and put into the hands of Congress, because Congress created the law, basically the escape hatch for NIST, to, via the director, put this information off limits.
Well, explain that process for people. How exactly are they claiming this is jeopardizing public safety?
It's basically just a very conclusory answer. They don't really explain how or why the information is believed to jeopardize public safety. It's just that around 2002, I believe, Congress created this little escape hatch for an agency such as NIST during an investigation to basically put certain information off limits if it's believed to jeopardize public safety.
Just incredible. And one of the other incredible things that your research has uncovered that I haven't seen get a lot of attention, but I thought was quite interesting when it came out, was the information that you uncovered about a company called Turner Construction and the renovations that they were doing in the Twin Towers right up till the very morning of 9/11. Can you tell us a little bit about Turner Construction?
Yes, some other FOIA researchers had gotten hold of some records regarding some projects that had been proposed in the year before 9/11 by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the parties who were managing the property at the time, and certain contractor names popped up in those records, and I decided to do some cross-research on some of that information, and eventually determined that the CEO of the company at that time is somebody who later became a rather close associate of President Bush himself. Later became the mayor of Dallas, Texas, later attended economic policy meetings, international economic policy meetings with President Bush overseas with other foreign heads, was appointed as a director of an organization known as the White House Fellows by President Bush. I don't recall the exact year. This is after 9/11. And who turns out today to be a neighbor of President Bush within a couple of miles, I believe. So yeah, some interesting associations tied up, turned up rather there, and also the director of NIST at that time also later became. Well, I don't recall the exact details. I would have to pull it up in front of me again in order to recall every detail, but. Yeah, there was definitely some interesting associations between the CEO of Turner Construction and President Bush.
That's right. And tell us about what Turner Construction was doing, or what we now don't know about what they were doing in the World Trade Center.
Right. There was a property management assessment of the property about 9 months before 9/11. And within that assessment was proposed work upon the steel supportive columns within the elevator shafts, for example, among many other things. And some of the deficiencies noted were rusting upon these steel columns and abatement of asbestos-containing fireproofing material. Removal of that was also proposed. So when one says that there was no opportunity for any unscrupulous party to tinker around within the World Trade Center, vis-a-vis the demolition or controlled demolition route, that answer would certainly seem to be false. There seems to have been ample opportunity for some unscrupulous work to have been performed there possibly, and certainly there was significant work being done in that area. And it turns out that Turner Construction was more than likely the entity doing this work. It appears that they were working up until the very morning of 9/11 on the property, and going back as far as 3 or 4 years at least, according to some records. And also happened to turn out that Turner Construction also built the headquarters of an organization known as the Naval Sea Systems Command, which was a division of the Department of Defense. And one of their divisions, the Indian Head Naval Surface Warfare Center, just happened to be one of the only kids on the block at the time, so to speak, who were developing the energetic nanothermitic materials that were later discovered in the World Trade Center dust.
Right, absolutely. And I'm sure my listeners will be familiar with Kevin Ryan and his work looking at some of the connections of the people involved in testing and creating these nanothermitic materials. Absolutely, it just keeps going deeper and deeper. And again, very telling that apparently the records describing the work that they were doing and the projects they were doing in the World Trade Center were destroyed in the World Trade Center on 9/11, along with other key documents that we know from, for example, the Enron investigation records and things like that. So just more valuable documents that were destroyed on that day.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did ask for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey for any records regarding Turner Construction for work done on the property, the World Trade Center, and they did advise me that all that information was destroyed on 9/11. I'm currently trying to seek some ways around that obstacle. for example, in order to perform major work on properties within New York City, one has to obtain permission from the New York City Department of Buildings.